Hello and welcome to Capricorn Makes. I'm Stacy and I've been doing some crafting and knitting and it's been very, very fun, and I just kind of wanted to show that off today. So I started playing around with, well, okay, I guess I should back up. I just started a video and I'm already having to back up. So I knit a sweater for Meek's Doll's Archer, and it finally arrived to her, and I probably should have taken a video and shown it off before I sent it, but I forgot. So, but it was cabled. It has like a leaf pattern down one sleeve, and it's got like faux cabling in the front to reduce bulk, and then actual cabling on the sides and around the arms as well as a shawl collar. But it was slightly too long, and so I had to take a little bit off of the bottom, and I did. And I was using this sort of, Noi was wearing this, and it was the only thing she was wearing. And I, like, at the time, I was like, oh yeah, that's really fun, la la la. Well, I finished working on this project, and since I was knitting it to, like, flat patterns, and I hadn't done anything, I hadn't ever knit for dolls before. I've knit socks, I've knit, complicated things. Like I'm not a stranger to knitting with fine yarns. I spin fine. I like to work with fine yarn. I'm just trying to see if I've got anything. But yeah, so I mean, I'm used to working fine. Like, these are just basic, these are some of my basic socks. I actually really like this stitch, which you're not going to be able to see very well on camera, but it sort of has this, it's not a cable, but it has sort of a braided appearance to it. It's really dark, you're not going to be able to see that. And then this one is some of the first socks that I knit. It's just not really, like, it's coming into spring here, so it's not really sock weather right now. But a lot of my socks were knit when I was quite a bit heavier than I am now, and they don't really fit anymore. Like, they kind of just like down my ankles and then like flop off the end of my feet, which it just is not great at all for trying to keep socks in place. But yes, I'm used to working small. I'm used to working fine. I really like small work like that. Mittens, like color work, mittens, lace patterns. I really enjoy that kind of fine fiddly work, and so doll knitting is exciting. And I do like working in chunky scale as well. There is quite a lot of fun that you can do when you play with scale. One of the things that I knit for my husband a really long time ago was a seed stitch cowl. And here it is. It is enormous, and and it is meant to be. It's supposed to be oversized. It's supposed to be like absolutely ridiculous, bulky, fun. But he sits with this in his office and just sits there and will sit like this with his headphones on and play on his computer, which is fine. You know, I mean, you can see, like, I'm in my studio right now. It's still cold. But anyway, these are really, really fun, and they're so oversized that I figured it would be really easy to sort of replicate this in doll scale, and so I did. I did quite a number of test runs before I while I was sort of playing with like size, like how long they needed to be, because with that one, the rule is you kind of want it about as deep as your head is, and you want it down to about crotch length for it to do things pleasingly without being too tight around your neck if you fold it, or like without being too long so you've got like big gaps or it's not warm. And so I was trying for that with my SD70 here. So come on, there we go. So you can see it goes about down to his crotch, and if he had a head, it would be about as tall as his face is. And this is a really, this is probably the longest one that I made, but it makes for a pleasing amount of drape and bulk, and without being too bulky for his shoulders. Like, I could actually cross this again if I wanted something shorter or bigger or more complex, or, you know, to hide like a sulky face or whatever. And it's nice and stretchy and soft, so you get a sense of like, unfortunately, if you work too tightly, everything gets stiff at this scale and it won't drape properly. And so this has a lot of stretch, a lot of drape, and this one just happens to be sparkly. This is not my hand spun. This is just some commercial sparkly sock yarn that I've been meaning to knit up for quite some time, and I really quite like this. And so I did another one, this fabulous rainbow. I had spun up this yarn from a gradient bat where all I had wanted was solid colors, so I took all of the transitional colors off and I had spun it up into just one long gradient because they already transitioned in between them, so I figured it would be fine just like this. And I love this. I love this so much. It is so bright and the colors look like scales, and I don't even know what YouTube is going to do to this because it amps all of the intensity of all of my colors up anyway. So I have a feeling this is just going to be like day glow. And it's not, it's just primary, but it's also silk. It's silk and alpaca and merino, I believe. So it has quite a lot of sheen to it. Because the alpaca or the silk puts quite a lot of shine into it. So this just glows. It glows in person, it glows in photos, and it just makes me, it is one of those one-of-a-kind things where I could probably try and replicate these, and with some trial and error I probably could. But it will, like, it was just one of those like pieces of felicity that just happens. And I love it. Like, I love it long on him. I love it crossed. I love it just like, I love how it all kind of just is this fabulous rainbow of amazing. And then, but I liked this size better. This one was slightly shorter. I think it's about the same width. I thought the width was pretty good, but it's just slightly shorter. And I liked that again. And so I was, oh, now you can see it. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on film. I was having a devil of a time when I was working on this one. No, you're not going to be able to see it. Well, maybe you can. I did a stitch pattern on this one that, oh gosh, I think this really needs to be washed and blocked properly. Oh wow, you can't. I did a stitch pattern on this one that's actually a, like a slant rib. That's not actually what it is, but that is what it's supposed to come out like. And you can't hardly see the ribbing, like the diagonal on it at all. Like, I can kind of pick up the, like the texture of the stitches, but you have to be at exactly the right angle in order to be able to see that diagonal rib, and I'm not really pleased with that, because this wasn't, like, for being a simple knit, it wasn't simple. Like, it was way more fiddly than it needed to be. I mean, but it's still stretchy and it's still quite soft, but like, for the amount of extra thinking that had to go into this as opposed to like these two, totally not worth the extra time and brain power, because one of the types of knitting that I like to do is just knitting while I'm hanging out with my husband in the evening on the couch. So I need to either be able to tell exactly where I am from like what the pattern is on here, which I can do with some patterns, because I know that I put like this stitch into a stitch that looks like that, for example, or I need to just have like an easy memorable pattern where I'm just knitting or just purling, or I'm, you know, like I'm doing like a brainless thing to a marker or something like that. I can't, and this just required just slightly too much. Like, it probably took me as much time to knit this as it did for me to knit both of these, which is dumb for like little tiny strips of fabric. So I got done with these, and I made another one in MSD size. It's not quite the same size as this one, but the proportions of this one were slightly off from what I would have preferred to do, just because this was like a piece off of another garment. It didn't have those same kind of proportions. So I made one that had these kind of proportions just for MSD size, and I do quite like that one as well. That was quite a fun knit. And then I also made a little fairy hat. I had it on, tried it on Noe. Like this one is too tightly knit. I really needed to make it not quite so firm. I made one of these for myself when the Golden Compass first came out, because Lyra has a hat like this, and the one I made was like, it was like alpaca and then like gold ribbon and then like some other sparkly things in it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, but it was super chunky like this, and I thought it was really fun. And I don't particularly like this hat. Like, it doesn't quite do what I wanted it to, but trial and error. Like, you know, it's like some of the stuff I'm quite happy with as a whole, and some of it I'm not really, but that's part of what, you know, what the process is, just for learning. Speaking of things that I'm not incredibly happy with, it's just a body here. So they've, Doll in Mind has their Lorena heads on sale again, and I hemmed and hawed over it for like 2 weeks, because that was sort of the doll that I was sad about missing. And then I realized that the reason why I was hemming and hawing about it so badly is, yes, I like the sculpt, yes, I like the head, but I want a closed eye version, or the dreaming, or whatever it is, the half closed eye. That's the version I want, not the open-eyed one that they're selling. So who knows if I will ever get around to that. But this is just a dress that I made for Blythe that's on here, so she has something to wear with this. I made this little cocoon wrap, which I'm not like thrilled with, but I was going for a certain thing and then ran out of this material, so I had to truncate it. So it's not quite the shape that I was going for, but it feels nice, and it's got that kind of faux mohair halo effect going on. And I think it works for what it is. Like, I have just enough to come back and put little cuffs on these, so that like when her arms are out, like it'll cuff instead of be just the big open loops. Not that I don't like the big open loops, but I just, like, as a garment, this is not quite what I was going for, which is okay. There's learning. I'll probably make a whole bunch more of these and figure out like the pattern that I want, and things like that. This was just playing around. The things I wasn't just playing around with are that I decided to knit a sweater. And so I did. I made a sweater for Noe, and she's very tall and very skinny. And so this was supposed to go down to like her crotch line, and cover her decorations on her wrists, so while also not really covering the one on her neck. And it was just slightly off. It's like the arms were long enough and it fit through the body, but I wasn't happy. Like, I was really having trouble with the bottoms flaring or rolling. Now this one doesn't roll, but it's too, or at least it doesn't roll when it's on, it rolls when it's off, but it's too firm at the bottom, which, you know, doesn't really matter because of what she's wearing, or what she would be wearing. It would be fine. But it also was too big in the shoulders. Like, this would fit, this would probably fit a boy doll pretty well, that has slightly wider shoulders than she does, because her shoulders aren't terribly wide. I think the Mira doll body, which is not very big, has wider shoulders than she does. But so I re-knit the whole thing. I knit another sweater with the changes that I thought, but I actually took out almost like 2 centimeters out of the shoulders, which, because of the way it has to go, meant that that length had to go on the bottom of the sleeve. So like the other sweater off, held up against this one, is even like funnier. It's not as long too. I took probably like a centimeter or a centimeter and a half off the bottom as well to make up for it, because if you're taking off the top, the whole sweater is going to be like shorter. But this was like, anyway, it was just like I knit this and then immediately realized the kind of thing that I needed to do. But since she then had a sweater that I really liked, I decided she needed like other clothes as well, because it was finally time, and she was finally like, sure, I'll wear some clothes for you now. Like, what do you want to make for me? What sounds good? So I have this green fabric that I have in, I think I have it in, it was part of some quilting fabric that I got. So I have probably 4 or 5 different versions of this pattern, just in the same color, or in different colors, sorry. And then I have her in one of the cowls that I got, and then here, and I changed her back to like one of the short wigs, because it was easier while I was doing sweater fittings to have like not the big fuzzy yarn wefted wig. But here is Zoe. And I love it. I just absolutely, I love the way this sweater fits. I like I managed to get it so that the bottom isn't rolling. It wasn't supposed to be extremely fitted. So for Archer's sweater, I had done a drop shouldered sweater, and I had wanted to do a raglan sweater for this one. And so, and the raglan sweater comes up sort of at an angle here. So both the body and the sleeves get smaller as you go to the top. So I'm just taking all the little bits off of her. But yeah, so like I'm happy with, I was trying new things. I probably, between the 2 sweaters, I probably tried more than a dozen cast-ons and cast-offs, trying to get what I want in the tension that I want, in the scale that I want, without either flaring out because it's too soft, or rolling because it's there isn't enough support, or being too firm, and so like it's not stretchy, or like it doesn't act right because it's stiff, so it'll stick up or stick out or anything like that. But yeah, so this is just a little high-waisted, like quite high-waisted, because I wanted to be able to have it like with blouses tucked in later on down the line. Just a little skirt with a long sweater, and it's lovely and cuddly, and it's still soft. Like I can push her sleeves up probably better, like if her arm is bent. And there's lots of room. Like I'm pretty sure I'm actually pretty sure a bigger MSD would be able to wear this as well, because this was supposed to be like comfy fit without being fitted. Like a fitted sweater, like in the body, like you can see it's boxy, it's supposed to be boxy and long. A fitted sweater would have more of an hourglass shape for her, at least, and I can knit that. It's just not what I wanted for this particular sweater, because I was focusing on the raglan detail and just getting my cuffs and collars right. And yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, she's been hanging out with me in the lounge while I work. I've been working on other things. I decided that I wanted to try this again because I'm just learning like how to do things at this scale. So I had been working on a sweater for a Thasian size because I wanted to know if like some of the proportions that I was noticing at MSD size held true for the bigger sizes as well. And so I have the same yarn in a different color. I have it in, I was going to grab the pink ball. So I have some pink, and then I have 2 balls of this sort of wheat color. It's not really tan, whatever color this is. Oatmeal. And I will probably do like a striped sweater because I like these 2 together as well. But I knit, And I knit him a sweater all the way up to his armpits, from like his crotch line. So I had knit like this much sweater. And then put it on him again, and then decided that the stitch that I had done, which was a really, really tidy stitch, I realized that I had constructed it really poorly. Like my tension had gone amiss in a couple of places, and so it was supposed to be ribbing that was very even, and it was not even. And the way in which I was switching needles meant that there was this spiral, like 3 spirals around the whole thing that made it warped. Ugh! Now, I could have fixed it, but it actually would have just taken less time to unknit it. So I made some yarn ramen, and have been reknitting it again. So that, I think I need to oil my chair. So I've been knitting, and I found this stitch rather than doing the ribbing, which I would have had to change too many things for the ribbing to work. I made this stitch, and I don't know if I can get it into focus, but it is this, like, it's just a random stitch that I found in a sock making book, and it has like this really delightful, like, sort of diamond trellis pattern, but it also sort of stretches out to, like, super stretchy, which is really nice. But it kind of has like this purled thing going on, and also like a mini offset checkerboard thing. Like, I haven't found a stitch that I have loved so much and want to knit again and again and again and again and again in a long time. And actually, as I was showing it off earlier, like, this is one of those stitches. Like, this is such a easy, cool stitch that gives you such a nice effect for the amount of work that you put into, and it's really easy to memorize, so I can just do it without thinking and can always tell where I'm at, which is the same thing with this. Like, this is almost as easy as knitting, plain knitting. And if I lose where I'm at, I can always tell exactly where I'm at in the pattern, which is like the holy grail of easy knitting stitches. And I think it's really, really, really effective, like, at this scale. It gives quite a lot of detail without being too busy, or too out of scale. Like, it's not super, super bulky. So the only thing that I haven't decided is whether or not I'm going to knit this into a full sweater, or if I'm just going to do a sweater vest out of this. I plan on doing quite a few sweater vests. I really like them, and part of his thing is he's going to be wearing like button-downs and things like that, but in a sort of like casual, I'm an old style librarian, I'm Mr. Rogers kind of way. So it's not super fancy. It can be, like, he will have jackets and ties and things like that, but he will also have more casual, you know, this kind of knitwear is one of those things that makes it comfy without being too formal or too on all the time. And I think sweater vests are kind of right up in that alley. One of the other sweater vests that I'm dying to make is a linen stitch, like a tricolor linen stitch. I found, as I was cleaning up, I found this bag of scrap yarn, which is where this white fluffy stuff came from. I also have it in like this, like several amazing colors of hot pink, and some, I don't know, this stuff is pretty ghastly. I may not make anything out of it. But what's in the bottom of this bag is a bunch of tapestry wool. So I have all these colors in all of these tiny amounts. And so doing like some Fair Isle and doing color work and all of that is very viable with this. And it is wool. It's actually really, really nice tapestry wool, but I don't really do tapestry work. So, and it's not really soft enough for people garments. So like, that's nice to have, and I'll have some. Like, I plan on doing like a really, really tiny one that has the same colors that are in the skirt. Because they have some in there, and then I will probably do one for him in like not manlier colors, but just more somber colors than what I would be using for her. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the heck out of it, and it's really, really nice. Oh, other things on the sewing horizon. So I have other little, not vesty, like little tiny frilly cardigan things planned out of these to go along with, oh, come on, all the way over here. While I was out, I found this really, really, really lovely lace, and it's perfect for layering over, let me just get it all together here. It's perfect for layering for either a dress or a skirt. So that's probably like the end effect that I will end up with. And I don't know if I want to do a skirt yet, or if I want to do like a little dress that has, you know, just a simple top and straps, sheer straps, or both. I mean, I have, like, I bought, I don't know, about a yard of it. So, I mean, I have enough here to do several things with. It looks good with this pink sweater. It'll look good. Like, actually, that is a good point. If I do a dress, if I'm doing these little cardigans that are open front, I can just put them over the dress, and that would be fine. Or like I can do like a matching blouse that tucks in so that I have options. I don't know. That's the great thing about making your own things. You have the choice and you can experiment. Speaking of experimentation, the last thing that I have today for the video is that, so Anthem lost her body, and I talked about this, where like this mirror doll body is just not, it's fine, but none of the other dolls that I would want can accurately be portrayed in this scale. I just, like, there's too much grit and realism. Not realism, surrealism might be more of it. More of what I am thinking of. And I just can't find enough adults or adultier sculpts in the MSD that aren't like the hyper realistic fashion line, which is not really, really what I want. So I've decided I'm going to jump up to sort of like the 50 to 60 centimeter dolls for her, probably. But in the meantime, she's just a floating head, and I didn't want her to just be a floating head. So I took, out of paper clay, I sculpted a very simple bust for her. And it does, when I'm not holding it and shaking, it does actually sit securely on here, and I do have a limited amount of movement. But being able to have her on this gives her like an actual place to be, which is really, really nice, because she's just, like, she's not stuck anywhere. Or she's not like tucked away, or I'm not going to knock her makeup accidentally. She's got a place to sit. And it might turn out that I end up reshelling like her head sculpt entirely. Like, I like the sort of mass-produced idea of this, but if I do end up shelling more of her dolls and my aesthetic goes in a particular direction, it might be such that her head might change as well. But I do have a lot of nostalgia for this particular head, and I think just having like a really simple, like really dead simple bust stand is sort of the way to honor that for now, for me. So, other news is that I found out that, like, most of the resin casting supplies and mold making and things like that, like, some of the art stores here did carry it, and there are like rubber companies that carry some things like silicone in bulk. But really, you pretty much just order things from Australia. That's, like, if there's not a New Zealand-based company or an Australian company doesn't have an actual store, like a retail store here, or a distribution center or something like that here that you can order like in-house online. You just order it online, and just deal with having to get it all shipped here. And I found out that the big mold and resin casting like place that people order from Australia actually has a store here in New Zealand. And I live in Auckland, which has like a great number of the population lives here in Auckland. And so it was likely that a store like that would be in Auckland, except for the fact that Wellington is sort of like the film studio city for that kind of stuff. And so they would likely need those supplies. So I'm like, oh, well, it might be in Wellington. It could be. No, it's here in Auckland. Not only is it here in Auckland, which like on a bad day could take like an hour and a half or 2 hours to drive across, but it's like 5 minutes from my house. I live right down the street from some film theaters, and I live right at the foothills of the Waitakere Mountains, which they use in a lot of fantasy settings. Like Xena Warrior Princess was like filmed here, and things like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2 was filmed here. But yeah, they've got just film studios tucked over there, and they're just like, they're not, I don't think, terribly exciting. Like there's a big setup right now that is like barbed wire fencing. Like I don't even know, like I'm not sure if there's a way to tell what movies are filming here at the moment. But so you just kind of hear things like in the community, like, oh, so-and-so's here working on this, or, oh, these people are here and doing this. Like there might be people that are in the know, but I don't really. But it's just fun to drive by and see like the green screens, the huge outdoor green screens that they've had set up for whatever it is that they're working on now. Because they build them with like the containers, and so you'll see like, you know, like 20 by 50 containers all stacked up in the row with the big green screen on there, so they can do those wide outdoor shots and have like everything all green screened off. It's wild. I might go down there and take some photos sometime because it's kind of fun. There's like a it's on the other side of a rail track. Oh, my battery's dying. Anyway, but yeah, I might go down there and take some photos, and I should go before this dies. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.